You're listening to the WB Download, coming to you from Wheel & Builder's showroom in Studio 1C. We are a podcast centered around building custom homes, the customer experience of building a custom home, and a really entertaining listen from many great guests and interviews that may or may not have anything to do with building. I'm excited to share with you their voice and their stories that will enhance your idea of the custom builder world. All right, welcome everybody. This is Jeff Whelan, president of Wheel & Builders, here on the WB Download. Thank you very much. Coming to you live from the Wheel & Builders Studio 1C. And today is Tuesday, October 24th. Thank you everybody for listening. Thanks for being here. I hope you guys really enjoyed that the last podcast we did. I got a lot of good feedback on it. I had people calling me from all over the place saying how much they enjoyed it, and I thought it was really good too. So I'm glad we've got that out there. The 23 most important things that we're working on in the homes right now, or most desired things in the home right now. So, hey, like I said, it's October 24th. 2023. And here's what's happening in the world right now, of the building world and in my world. We just closed on a job up in Lebanon. And this is a job that I told you the last time that we were getting ready to close, or we were closing on it. We took it out a couple more weeks because we need a little bit more time to land that plane smoothly, like we talked about. And we had a guy quit who we had to go back and fix a lot of stuff that wasn't done right there, and which is not uncommon, unfortunately. And I don't know if you can hear that in my voice. So we went back and we just, my brother come in, finished it up with us. Jack out there in the field finished it up, and they just did an awesome job. So the homeowner was in here, and we got everything wrapped up, and just really cool. The guy has a construction background and commercial construction background, and just really had some tough conversations along the way, but had some really good conversations. We understood each other, and when we got all said and done with, it was really cool to see it all come together. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some things we go through with our municipalities and our leadership there in the municipalities, and we have a gas station being proposed to go on the front right corner of our farm, on a piece of property that we do not own. When we bought the farm, the previous owners held on to it because they clearly knew that it was going to be worth some money someday. And so they proposed to put a gas station out there. And, I'm not ever against progress in building, but I was kind of against this. I wish that they would have tabled it, because I feel like there's a lot of things coming down that way, down that road, and there should be some more detailed plans for everything and not just putting a gas station out there. But I got to hand it to our county commissioners in Warren County, man. They're such good people. I've known them all for a long time. And when I get up and get the chance to speak in front of them, they're all very respectful, nice people, and I feel like we understand each other. So I just can't thank them enough. Butler County's the same way. We've got two builders that are on the Butler County Commission over there, and they're just great people, and they run these counties. I just can't imagine all the different things that they have to have their hands on, and understanding what happens in the county, in both of the counties, and they just do a great job. Goshen Township, same way out there. When we're out in Goshen, we had a home Rama meeting the other day, and the officials are on a Zoom call in our home Rama meeting, which has never happened before. The Claremont County building official is on the Zoom call, just making sure that we're all on the same page. What do we have to do to get things going in the right direction? What can we do to help each other? And it's just really cool. So I need to say that the further south you get in Ohio, the worse it gets. And I'm telling you that it is miserable and to deal with some of these places down there. And it's not always the building department. The building departments are usually really good shape. It's the other bureaucrats that you have to deal with, and it just gets stupid, and makes you just never want to ever go down there and build again. But I think about that the other day when I was in a Warren County Commissioners meeting a couple weeks ago, and just think about how great they are. Makes you appreciate them when you go somewhere else and it's not like that. We're breaking ground on Home Rama this week. I know I keep talking about it, but again, we go in for permits, and we waited a little bit longer than what we thought we were going to. It also took us a little bit longer to get the lot recorded than we thought it was going to. So now we're ready to break ground. It's a big deal. So check out our Facebook page and check out our website for pictures and things that are going to be happening with that job. So we're going to try and do a really good job. I'm the supervisor on the job, so we're gonna try and keep you posted on a lot of things that are happening with pictures and whatnot. So I know I keep talking about it, but this time it's for real. And on the farm, man, it's been stable here for a minute. I'm just surprised. All the beans are gone and the guys are just waiting on the corn because the corn's taking a little while to come around. Clint said the other day that it's still got 25% moisture in it. So they're waiting, to get that stuff, off there. So, a lot of good things happening around here, and, it has certainly turned to fall, if not winter, in a hurry. And it's always funny to me that, it's 51 degrees out and we think we are dying, and, because it's so cold. And I'm betting here, and if it was 51 degrees in the middle of February, we'd probably have been running around in shorts and t-shirts. And then, we finished up our football season this last weekend, 2 weekends ago. We have a single in and out playoff. You win, you keep on playing, you lose, you're done. And that's what we did. We played really, really well these last 2 games, and couldn't be more prouder of the kids. It was my last youth football game that I was ever going to coach, because my son moves into the 7th grade next year, and have no intentions of coaching in the 7th grade. And it's been a good run. I coached for 5 years in youth football, and I've coached for 5 or 6 years in youth basketball. And I really enjoyed it. It's something that I never knew that I loved, and never knew that I had any interest in until started doing it with my son, and of course with the other coaches. And man, it's just been awesome. So can't thank the people who run those organizations, that the boards that put these organizations together. The amount of stuff, we will call it, that they put up with is just amazing. And but it's also a big volunteer organization, and they do a great job. And I don't think anybody is just randomly walking up and thanking these people for all the stuff that they do. So they need to be thanked. So anyway, that's what's happening in the life of me, and in the life of Wheel and Builders, and things are going good. We're excited about what we have coming up for the next year, and a lot of changes going on around here, but we'll keep you posted on that too. But man, I can't wait. So I want to talk about my guest for today. Now, I'll tell you that as always, I'm excited about this. But this guest is a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time. Our companies have done business together for a long time, even before I was here. And just so proud of this guy. So his name's Adam Weber. He is the owner of AE Door and Window. He's the president of the company. And you're going to hear us tell stories about how this company got started. I'm fascinated with Adam growing up and the things that he did in college. And as he came up through the ladder, he worked his ass off and just really did it the right way. He didn't just step into the position and not have any respect from anybody. He worked from the ground up and is now in a position where that he's earned. And I'm proud of him for it. And this is going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's bring him on in here. This is Adam Weber here on the WB Download. All right, everybody, it's my pleasure to welcome my good friend Adam Weber to the podcast and bring him on in the room. Adam, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here.
How you doing?
The showroom for the first time.
I know, man.
It's exciting.
It is an exciting day. Yeah. I feel a little bit of disappointment when you come walking in here today, because I didn't realize you had not been here yet, and then I also at the same time realized that I had not been over to your new showroom yet, and I feel like, as far as good of friends as we are, we've really disappointed each other a lot today.
Right.
So
I felt like I started going through my phone. Like, did I miss an invite? Did I miss something? Yeah.
So you're the president of AE Door and Window Company here in Cincinnati. Is that the right title for you?
Yes.
You are.
Yes, the president.
We're going to need better answers than that moving forward as we go on. So tell me.
That is correct.
That is correct, sir.
Next question.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, man? What are you all about?
So I grew up in Fairfield, but went to school at Baden. So I guess for me, really, I grew up in the Hamilton kind of Ross area. I just felt like maybe because it's where the girls I dated where I lived out in Ross. But for me, yeah. So technically had a 45011 mailing address, but I spent all of my time out in Hamilton and Ross, and mostly because the kids you run around with at Baden, right? They live out in Ross. So,
yep. Yep. So you went to Baden. And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in '01.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, you are a lot younger than I am. That's crazy.
Right.
So there's another, I know that I have more stories about this later on, but you went to college. Where'd you go to college at?
Went to Florida Southern.
Yeah.
Down there for water ski scholarship. So I know that's when people are like, water skiing, right? That's the first question I get. They're like, water skiing in college? Like, I did too. And I'm like, different kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. different. Like,
you weren't snow skiing in Florida. It wasn't like that toboggan movie. Like.
Yeah, right. So I went down there on a water ski scholarship, and probably, like I tell people, only reasons I went to college, right? I don't think it wasn't really in the car. I mean, it was in the cards, but I wasn't like, the day I graduate, like, I can't wait to go to college. Like, it just wasn't it. I just thought, man, I'm getting into the business with my dad. Went to college, and I was like, man, I'm never getting in the business with my dad. This is way more fun than going and hanging garage doors. But yeah, so I went down there and did a little water skiing.
Nice. What was your childhood like?
Well, we spent a lot of time on the boats.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, my sisters were skiers. A lot of time at the boat club, going to Dale Hollow. We had a lake house in Williamstown. Spent a lot of time there. But as a kid, really just following my dad around the shop, learning everything I could there. For the longest time, I thought tow motors pulled the boats because that's how we got them out of storage and get them ready. I was like, oh, we hook it to the car. So, for the longest, I learned how to drive a tow motor pulling a boat. Then I learned how before I could drive a car and pull the boat. So, just following my dad around doing that kind of stuff. But really, just grew up mostly as a family. Things I remember the most were the boating things. When it came, other than that, like, I'm like, I don't even remember really having sisters.
Yeah,
but they were a lot older than me, right? So, when you think about the boat. Amy was 18, or I was 11 when Amy moved. Yeah. Basically, going to be 11. I was 10 when she went away to college, and she never moved home again. So, jokingly, I kind of think of her more as an aunt than a sister.
Right. She's gone again.
She's always been gone. Yeah. She's never really ever, she's not lived here since the day she moved away for college.
Yeah. Let's bash her. She's just not here. What's her problem?
Well, I just think, never mind.
So we'll get into this a little bit, but she and I are the same age, and I don't know if you know this or not, but we took our driver's ed together. Amy and I did that. Yeah,
I did know that.
Yeah, we were almost dating there for a minute, but I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
We were this close to being brothers.
It was so close, so close.
All I wanted was a brother growing up.
So you have two sisters, Amy and Erin, right? Yep. And is that really what I've never asked you this before? Is that what AE Doors is?
Is named after them, and really because back then. The story that Dad tells, I think he's just trying to make me feel good about himself. But everything was alphabetical, right? It wasn't about how much you spent. It was you were first in the phone book if you had. So it was easy. Amy was born, then Aaron, then AE, and really you couldn't get in front of him when it came to the Yellow Pages. And I think that was the real reason for it.
I know a lot of companies like that, man. It's the Yellow Pages were the big deal,
right? That was like that was like the mecca. If you weren't in the Yellow Pages
or A1 appliance, A1 this, it was the way it was.
And I think people now do it, not realizing why people do it. But that was the huge.
I just figured that Amy was gone so long that it was just Adam and Aaron now, and that's the way I've always told the story is what it's about. And
that's what I've been telling everybody.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. I think that's the way it should be.
I should take her picture off.
I think you should
be right off the front of the building.
What was it like growing up with Bill and Rosemary?
Let's see.
Was he always in the garage door business, like as long as you've known it, or was he still a bricklayer?
He was a bricklayer, but I don't, I was pretty young. I don't remember because there was a point where he was kind of moonlighting, kind of doing a little bit of both. I remember him doing bricklaying jobs, but I can't remember if those were like real jobs or if like the neighbor down the street needed, like John Boltman was the mechanic for all those years and he would go down there and do, bricklaying stuff for them. But other than that, I don't really remember. I remember Mom being home. I remember going to work with my mom. We opened up our Kentucky store. I remember she would drag me down there. However old I was, 5 or 6 years old, she basically was opening and running that store. And so I remember doing that with her. I remember having a vivid memory of having these toys that she would like bring down and be like, sit. Play and
nice.
But then as I got older, I remember Mom didn't work, and so there was just two different. Dad went to work, Mom took care of us. Dad was never going to a dentist appointment. Like I'm not sure Dad went to the dentist appointment, right? So like he would be like, "Oh, you went to the dentist?" Like, yeah, I thought you would know that. Like, no, I have no idea. So we like the only things I really we jokingly all remember is like. Mom handled everything when it came to us. Dad had no idea where we were at unless it was like involved in your sports. Like he coached the girls in some sporting stuff. So basketball and some other things. So he was involved with them more when it got to me. He did a little bit of basketball coaching with me, but then got more involved in the business and we had other coaches. But
I think that's the way it was in our family too. My mom ran everything. And I think she had to remind my dad that it was my birthday, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Probably still does. And yeah, I think that's probably the way it went back then. I always think about our parents, back in the day. If you've ever seen Goodfellas, like where they're hanging out down they all go to this club, and that's where they all hang out. They all went to the Beverly Hills Supper Club or something like that, and that's what they did. They had these big collars and bell bottoms, and now they're just like, now they come back into the real world. And I always think about that as all of our parents, that's what they used to do.
We found some pictures of my dad from work. Like they're sitting at their desk, shirt and tie, big collar, smoking a cigarette. I'm like, oh my God. Like, can you imagine? Like, I have people complain now, people smoke within 40 feet of the door. He's sitting at his desk, just piping one out.
That tells us a little bit about. My next question was going to be, what was it like having Bill as your dad? Because your dad's he's a sort of a legacy, so to speak, in Cincinnati. His voice is a legacy in Cincinnati, and somehow or another he got in with the Bengals and the Reds and just doing advertising, radio, TV, and was all over the place. And so the reason why I say what was it like to grow up with him, because I think he's a guy that's been around. And people know him, and I think that was probably maybe good and bad. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, it was, he got in with the right people and he always used to tell me, growing up, you got to get out in front of them, get them to know your name. That way they'll do business with you. And I think that was just part of it. Like, he couldn't afford to go spend a ton of money. So it was go to every single event, be out there shaking hands. And a funny story, Doug Pelfrey, the old kicker from the Bengals, comes into the Kentucky store a couple weeks ago. He's getting some doors for his house. And he said to me, he goes, man, you ran around that locker room. He's like, I thought for the longest time, like, you were part of the family. He's like, because you were in the locker room as much as any other kid. He's like, as I saw running around that place, and because Dad's known with Kenny Anderson and all the people at the Bengals, and just getting to know everybody and doing work for him and getting them to do radio spots or TV spots for him, we just got to know him to the point where he kind of just walked and kind of went wherever he went. So it was cool to be able to go to a Bengals game and just head into the locker room after the game. And like you said, Doug Pepper's like, man, you ran around that locker room like you owned it.
Yeah.
And I would run into I really just wanted to get in the other teams. I really didn't want any autographs from the Bengals. I really wanted to get the other teams.
The Bengals, we see them all the time.
Yeah, I was like, Troy Aikman's over here. We got to run in there. So, but yeah, awesome. It was cool growing up, having, he is recognizable. And still, even to this day, when we go out places, it's funny. Like when we'll go somewhere together, people will say, hey, I think that's that garage door guy over there.
Yeah.
And so
that's cool.
It's kind of cool to go together now, especially now where you hear our voices now together on the radio. And it's crazy. People think, that he cuts those spots with me. The way radio has done, a lot of them he hasn't cut in a lot of years. They were able to cut his voice.
Really?
And so even though you see the back and forth between us, he's not in the studio. Someone else says the words, and then it pulls every single word that he's ever said from all the years of doing those recordings.
Oh, shit.
And Jim Blumel can piece them together within 15 minutes, can piece them all together, and it's a full sentence from him.
Man, that's amazing.
It's really cool. I really wanted to have a lot. So we did a whole lot together for like 4 or 5 years, and then recently we haven't done any together. It's just my voice, and then they just pipe his voice in together.
That's pretty cool.
So we can make a full commercial. So he doesn't always have to come down and if he's gone or busy or doing something, then we still have the commercials. So
that's good. Cool. I was at the Reds game with him one day. It's a businessman special, and years and years and years ago. And he just gets up and we walk over to the 700 booth, and as soon as we open the door, Marty Brenneman turns around and he goes, he's on the radio. He goes, oh my God, the garage door business must be good. You're down here in the middle of the day, and they just start bullshitting on the radio in the middle of the day, man. And I'm just standing back there, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. He also announces Baden games too, didn't he? He announced a lot.
He was on WMOH, like the voice of WMOH. So he was the color commentary for that for all. I mean, it had to be almost 10 years probably. I think he did that. So it's funny, you hear people like every once in a while they'll play repeats of like old state games or old playoff games, and I'll listen to them because we sponsor it now because of the girls going to school and just with Baden and different sporting events and local here. And they'll do a rerun and it's his voice. And I'll be like driving in the car and I'm like, wait a minute, that's Dad's voice. And it's an old game from 93, in the playoffs of the football team. So it's really cool.
Man, that's cool. So what's the greatest part of your life growing up, you think, so far? I mean, do you think it was the skiing? Do you think it was the boating, the family, the being around all the Bengals players? What do you think it was?
I think it was probably the boating, right? We've all been really big boaters. My sister's got a boat down in Alabama. That's been the one thing that brought us all together, right? I think if you think about it, it's the one thing my dad, he had very few patience when it came to many things, but when it came to skiing or teaching us or learning us to ski and do that stuff, his patience was unbelievable. He could sit in that driver's seat for 12 hours, sun baking on him. If he could have a scotch and water in his hand, he was driving that boat, and you could practice the same trick for 3 hours and get it wrong all day long. And he never got
That's amazing.
short with you. So I think as all of us, if you will say, if we can go to Dale Hollow, we spread my mom's ashes there. So for us, it's got a special place in our heart to go down there. And we all try to get down there at least once a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think boating has really brought us together as a family. It was the one thing that like you did and no one argued because you were just so excited to do it. And if you talk about your best memories as a kid, if you ask Amy or Erin, it was being down at Lilydale camping for those 2 weeks. The weather could have been terrible for 3 nights and tents got blown over, but you just remember like being on the water all day with like family friends and the old ski team that we were a part of from the Hamilton. They would all go down there. That was kind of our summer training. You just kind of learn new tricks together and stuff. And so I think boating has always been our big thing as a family.
That's cool. That's cool. Because the guy that taught me and my brothers and sisters, a guy named Rudy Rangers, was a guy who taught us to ski. And he was the same way. He didn't care if he sat there all day. I mean, we'd be out there for 12, 14 hours, just whatever we did. The only rule was you're not getting back in the boat until you get up.
Until you get up.
And that was it, man. And we were gone all day and it was so cool. So you were a big skier and I've always known this about you, but I didn't know when you went to college, was it on a circuit? Was it pro or what? How did that all come together? I mean, I know I was skiing when I was younger, but I certainly wasn't going to go and do it, for college and things. So that's like really cool. How did you take that first step and what was it like? How did you end up in Florida?
Yeah. So, you skied locally. I skied locally here. You get into tournaments and, I kind of always knew I wanted to do it. I had some shoulder issues and some injuries that I had to deal with. And so I didn't have the opportunity to do it in like my senior year because I was doing some rehab with my shoulders and stuff. But my brother-in-law helped me get a hold of some schools, kind of like a who's who, like you do for anything like football, basketball, anything like that. They have those same things. It's just, instead of it being like the NCAA, it's the NCWSA, so National Collegiate Water Ski Association. So got involved with them. There's 200 and some schools across the country that offer it either as a club or more than a club. And Florida Southern, Arizona State, ULM, ULL, all these different schools they have it higher up. Like they don't have football usually, or they don't have a certain sport, and it kind of makes it more of a premier sport at that school. And Florida Southern, I mean, when you go to the athletic page and you click on it, it's one of the sports for both men and women. And so, the beauty about that is that they allow you to get sponsorships as well. Like where back then you could not, now you have the NIL deal. When I was skiing, NCAA didn't matter if you were skiing pro so you would go to a lot of events and it might be a collegiate tournament, but it got recorded as a professional level as well. So you do that during the summer and then you can be on tour. It's all the rankings depending on what ranking you have or what ranking you have at that time.
That's pretty cool. So, and you keep talking about the boat club. You're talking about the Hamilton Boat Club, right? And I think we were kids, and I don't know how old we were, because you couldn't go on that river. And then they started building some things. They started making it nicer, and then I think the Hamilton Boat Clubs. You guys started doing all kinds of stuff up there. I mean, and I mean, your Amy was on the cover of the phone book in the pyramid when we were little, for skiing up there. I can't remember what year was that. I mean, don't you remember that when we were kids? I just felt like that river was just like a shithole, and then all of a sudden they fixed it up, cleaned it up, and started really doing some cool stuff up there. They put the dams in,
and that's what they were able to regulate the water a little bit better because you capture the trees and different stuff like that. But yeah, we practiced across from Camp Camel Guard there, and down at the boat club, and then we just did the show at Dam Fest, is what Dam Fest was called. But yeah, I don't know what year because I mean.
Well, that might have been, I mean, it had to have been
early 90s.
Yeah, it had been early 90s because.
Yeah, I think it was like 90 or 91 because I was probably 10, maybe 10.
Because I think when she was on the pyramid on the phone book cover, that was like the grand opening of it or something like that. I think was really cool. So, enough about Amy. We're here to talk about Adam. I mean, it's ridiculous, but whatever. So out of the whole family, who's the best skier?
Overall, probably was me. I mean, Erin probably would have had the best chance to be the best, but she quit at a young age. I mean, she was a national trick champion when she quit, and she just kind of quit cold turkey. I think it was one of those ones where you practice so hard, you kind of get there, you're the best, and then you're like, you know what? I don't know any of my friends anymore because all I do is ski every weekend and travel on the weekends, and that's where you find that. And so Erin probably quit prematurely and probably could have gone on to be pretty good at it, but I was the only one that went far enough with it to thoroughly.
I've heard that from guys, and I know a couple guys who were motocross racers, and when you as a parent, you see the kids getting into something, you just start them off, and you're pushing, and they go, and he was telling me later on in life, he said, it's tough because you go through all of that stuff, and here you are, you end up 25 years old, you're at the peak of your career, you're basically done, and you've got the personality of a fence post because you've never done anything but know your motorcycle, and that's it, and you're mechanic, and that's about as far as you go. He goes, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, is you get stuck into that rut. You don't have your friends. You don't have a normal childhood, and you want to be able to reach out and go do that stuff. So anybody who in college sports, professional sports, even in youth sports, they make such a dedicated idea of their lives to the sport, then they don't even know it, and I think that people just don't realize that, especially in professional sports.
Right. We even talked about it in college. A lot of us would joke. We had a fall and a spring session, and we would leave sometimes on Thursday mornings, get on the bus, and we'd go to the airport, or if it was within 8 hours, because getting all that equipment there was a pain to come on and get on a plane. So sometimes it was easier just to get us on a bus early in the morning and take us. But a lot of times we would come back, and it'd be like November, December, and I'm like, man, I don't know anybody besides the 12 people I get on this bus with every week, because every weekend everyone else is hanging out and watching games and doing stuff and drinking beer and hanging out. And I'm like, great. I got a 12-hour drive with the 12 of you, and one bathroom, and so we would joke. We're like, man, I wonder what everyone else does, like outside of school on Thursdays through Sundays. Like, I'm like, isn't it ladies' night at the bar on Thursday nights? And they're like, yeah, it's awesome. I'm like, never been.
I was telling a buddy of mine the other day, because we've been coaching football and basketball for the last 6 years, and next year our kids will be in the 7th grade and we can't coach them anymore. I said, we're going to have to come up with a habit next year. I mean, we're going to have to find a bar to drink at, or we're going to start playing tennis or something.
That's how it is with Haley right now. She plays club sports, and I'm like, every single day of every week moment, like, you get to that point where they get to that breaking point. Like last year, volleyball season ends, basketball's for high school, and then club's already starting, and she's like, I just want to go to watch the boys play basketball. I'm like, well, you can't, because you got practice for club. You got work to do, because you got stuff to do. So
let's paint the picture here a little bit. In our business, when our parents were in this business, all the kids kind of knew each other, ran into each other, and our families, being you were out in Baden, I was out in Ross, and we just kind of knew each other. Mm-hmm. We ran across each other quite a bit. In 1997, I think it was, I came home from school and I went to a tabletop night deal, and your dad grabbed me up and we started talking, and believe it or not, it was a really good conversation, because usually he's giving you a hard time or whatever we're doing, and it was a really good conversation, and plus I think that we went out and hung out afterwards, like tabletop, and it used to be a good time, and we started doing business with him ever since, because we were using another company when I got here, and I think that back in the day, they did, my dad and Bill did business together.
Yeah, they did.
Because I remember we tell the story about Big Greg getting his feet caught under that wooden door over there in Ridgevale, and so that was back in the day, and so we come along, years and years later, and I think that the way you and we started meeting, because doing business together and whatnot, but I think we were in a bar one night, down a tabletop night, and maybe you started slinging some guys around a little bit, and I think I was at the bar, and I can't remember if I was watching or helping, but probably watching, and I think we started being friends after that, and then we just, I don't know, it kind of grew from there, and then you were in the HBA, and you were president of the Associates Council, and just my history in the Home Builders Association, so we came to this point in our lives. I think that, what year did you come home? Did you say you came home from college, and what year was that?
So that would be like 05, 06.
Yeah, so it was 2005, 2006. That was the year I was president of the Home Builders Association. So, I forget how things came together. Your sister Erin marries a guy that I've known my entire life, was Brad Murphy. Yep. And my parents were friends with Brad's parents, and then my mom and his mom are still best friends to this day. Yeah. We built Brad and Erin's first house, when they grew up, and I just think that the reason why I'm saying I've been at your wedding, I was at your wedding, and this last one here, at your wedding there, I was there all day. I wasn't in the wedding, but I felt like I was in the wedding. Yeah, all day. And the next morning, I felt like I was in the wedding. It was, it was a long night, but it was a good time.
We were still running. We still running hoses for the bathrooms like an hour before the wedding?
So you're the youngest of three, and you have two older sisters, and you have three daughters, and so you've got a lot of women around you. all the time. And so do you think growing up with Amy and Erin and your mom, did that make you a better husband?
I guess depends on which wife you had, the first wife or the second one.
I didn't say that. I was going to say both weddings, and I thought I tried to get around that.
So,
a better husband to Felicia.
Yeah. Better husband to Felicia. Yeah, I think, I guess, I think the first one, you learn from mistakes, right? Obviously, you take, if you don't learn from it, you didn't do it right. We were young when we got married, and it didn't work out. Still friends to this day, and so our families are all still close. Obviously, we have Haley, and then Gina has Roman and Ruby. They're 2 little kids, so we still see them all the time at all of Haley's sporting events. But then, I think being around, I really kind of, my mom, I think, had a lot to do with the second time going around. What you want from them, and that working together. And I see a lot of resemblance in Felicia and my mom, and so I think that to me was when I knew when you meet someone, you're like, okay, this is that person, right? And you think, when you have, you're married the first time, you think this is it. But then you realize, you were young and maybe that wasn't it. But then when you do find that one person that reminds you of the person that you look up to and you trust, then I think it makes it easy. And I think Felicia has that ability of that to be more like my mom of anything. I
look at it in this from the outside looking in, because it always looks pretty from the window on the outside, and but you guys get along so great. But I see, some of the things you do, and I don't want to tell all your secrets, but I think that you just do an amazing job with those girls and with Felicia, and it's not a job, you know what I mean? But I think you do a great job. And that's why I asked you that question, is because I need some pointers. But so how would you describe your life now? I mean, you've got this wonderful family, and you're carrying on this unbelievable legacy. How would you describe your life now?
Right now it's everything. I think you want everything to go a certain way, right? And I think we're in that task. I always tell people all the time, when I come home, I'm a very organized person. If you go to my office, I like paper 90-degree angles. I don't like things crooked and stuff. And so anal retentive, I guess you would say, a little bit, but have fun at home. Felicia and I have a blast together. We can't wait till we get to go home to go do something on Fridays and Saturdays. We can spend weekends just her and I, or just nights just her and I, without friends or with friends. And then we got this corporate office rebuilt. We got the new store in Kentucky built the way we wanted it. Feels good to have these things going. Eastgate's gotten a little bit of remodel. All the stores are kind of going, and we're making some growth. And so it's really been fun right now, kind of stepping back and looking at everything really at a high level. When you're building new buildings, and as you would know, as you're building a house, you're into that house, right? But when you can step back and think the processes and procedures are starting to really work the way you want, and the last couple of years they've really started to do that, and it's gotten exciting. That's good. We've seen some tremendous growth, but we're doing it in an organized way that I feel like it can repeat itself, right? Sometimes you grow really fast and you step back and you're like, I don't know how we got here. It's good. And people are like, and everybody's patting each other on the back, right? And you're like, hold on a second. Does anybody know the formula for how we got to here? And they're like, no, but it's good. I'm like, well, when it's good and no one knows, it will fail, and we will fail. And so I always want to step back, and I'm like, if we can do the right steps and the right procedures, I can step back and watch this company. If we do certain things every way, and we sell it the same way, and we have the same concept with every customer and the same speech, and we have the same price, everyone's giving it the same. It's amazing to watch it all work together and kind of grow. And we're finally to that point where I feel like everyone's really on the same page, and it's been exciting.
That's good. That's good. That can be scary too, because you get to a point where it's just running smooth and you're like, well, now I'm waiting for something to go wrong. Right. But that's good that you're in that position.
Well, now you feel like you have time to look for those areas when there's going to be a problem, right? They're like, okay, now where do I see like a little chain link that might break? Before it's just, you're just hanging on when things are busy, and you're excited about that. Yeah. So let's talk about AE-Door. Okay. AE-Door Window Company. And you sell the best, you service the rest, right? That's right. And that's what your dad has always said. That's what you say. And I think that's awesome, by the way. Yeah. It's lasted a long time. You guys never changed it. How old is this company? 1980.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 43 years.
Yeah. 43 years, man. One night we were on a motorcycle ride, your dad and I were, and a bunch of guys, and I guess we were over in Fairfield somewhere, and we came around a bend, and he pointed over to it and said, it's a house that you guys grew up in, I think. Right, and he said that's where we started AE-Door at, was right there in that garage. He was a bricklayer and obviously wanted to do something else. I don't know how he got into the door business, but he started right there in your garage. And he said, actually, that's where Rosemary and I started AE-Door at, was in that garage. I think that's a cool story. And I think that, especially in today's day and age, you don't hear the startup stories as much as you used to. You know, the really struggling stories, the diehard stories. I don't think you hear that much anymore. He was a bricklayer. What's the story that goes along there? Did your mom ever work in a company, and how did all that come together?
Yeah. So Dad was a bricklayer. He worked for another garage door company for just a brief time, and then that didn't work. And he was like, "I'm going out on my own," kind of thing, because he was still moonlighting as a bricklayer. I think bricklaying just wasn't going to cut it, right, for what he wanted us. He wanted us to go to a private school, and it just wasn't going to cut the bills and stuff. And so he started in the backyard. It was like a detached garage. I mean, I think the detached garage is still there on John Garrett. You can always kind of tell the house wall on the corner has the nicest front door on it, because I think we've just always taken care of whoever's ever kind of moved in there. And so yeah, basically the story is started the business. Clopay used to bring trucks. They would unload. The neighbors would help unload 3 or 4 doors out of the back of a truck.
No kidding.
They'd walk in the back, and Mom just told him, she was like, "Hey, just do me a favor. Just don't, mortgage the house, and we'll be good." And by the time he third mortgaged the house, so we jokingly say like Dad had the balls to go start the company and put everything on the line, but it was probably Mom who kept us from being kind of complete financial crisis.
Right.
She was probably hiding money so that we could still eat and go to school. Because it's just at one point I know there was only one car. Dad was using it to go bricklaying at the time, so it was just and then they got the El Camino, but he was working out of that, and she said the joke is that when he third mortgaged the house, she was like, "Okay, this is it. Like, this works or it doesn't work," and then it continued to grow from there, and then we moved to a location over in Springdale area.
Yeah.
And I can't forget that. It's like the old Sportsplex that's over there now. It's right next to that. I forget the address on it. And then he bought the warehouse that, like Mom said jokingly, the one we're in now currently, you could walk through with an umbrella, right? Because the rain was just coming through. Like there was no, like, she's like, "This is what you want." He's like, "This is all we can afford." She's like, "I don't know if this is what we should do." And we only used a third of the building. Like they fixed it up in only a third of the building. I mean, now that building, I think all in all, with all the remodels and it had a complete makeover 4 years ago. I think we're like 65,000 square feet there now. So,
man,
and
that's amazing.
The big building in Kentucky, my mom was in the business when they opened the store in Kentucky, and, just for a couple of years to get it running. So she would drive down there every day with me to make sure that the building was, lights on and people could come in and buy stuff. Yeah. And then we bought the place on 42. And then just about a year and a half ago, we closed the one on 42 and moved into the new facility down off Industrial. Yeah. So we went from, I think it was 6,400 square feet down there to almost 18,000 square feet down there. And then we have about the 7,000 square foot facility in Eastgate over there by Jungle Gyms.
That's amazing. So while we're talking about your mom, let's pay a little tribute to your mom. She passed away 5 years ago, right? 6 years ago? 6 years ago. What a great lady. I didn't know her as well, probably as I should have when I was younger, but when we got older, we were always around each other, and hanging out. What's the greatest memory you have of her?
Probably just because Mom was always around, right? When you had a dad who's, he wants the best for all of you, but he's going to lead it with an iron fist, right? And so he was caring, but Mom was the one that we went to when we had an issue or a real problem and stuff. Yeah. And if Mom was mad at you, the only way you're getting in trouble is because she would lay your report card on the table at dinner and wait for Dad to come home to open it. And you're like, so you sit there sweating. You're like, damn, I think it's good. But that's why they sent it home and you couldn't open it, right? So you didn't know for sure. You're like, I think I did good. And then he'd open up and look at you and you're like, shit. And but yeah, my mom was just the one that kind of really took care of us, right? And she was the one that, and you tell people all the time, people are like, "I like your dad, but I loved your mom," right? And so I think that was kind of the concept. Dad was just the guy. He'd give you a shirt off his back, but Mom was caring and would listen to you and do whatever. Dad was ready to solve the problem. You're like, sometimes solving the problem just meant listening, and Mom was a listener and give good advice. And for someone who didn't have a college education, I tell people all the time, I said it during her eulogy, she knew how to when I bought my first house, how to mortgage it, how to do everything. I mean, saved every last penny. I mean, like I said, I think if it wasn't for my mom, my dad might have bankrupted us a couple of times because he was like, we got to go get it, you know? And then that mentality was good because they worked off each other, right? He had the balls to go try it and put everything on the line, where she was like, well, you better save some money just in case it doesn't work. And so, I think my mom was really that person that when you talk to people, they'll say, man, your dad's great, but I loved your mom, right? And so I think it's just because she listened.
That's awesome.
Stop back and really didn't always give you an opinion.
Yeah.
My dad, I mean, just like your dad would, you don't even want an opinion, and they're going to give it to you anyway. So you're like, I didn't ask for one. He's like, well, here, let me tell you. And you're like, oh, great. I didn't need it, but
Spot on.
Appreciate it.
We always said that about my mom and dad when they were here in the company, and they said, what are you going to do when your dad leaves? I'm like, he could have left 10 years ago. We need my mom to stay. She's got her finger on the books. You know, we can handle all the rest of the stuff. But your mom's a great lady. She was a great lady. And just, man, I see some of the things you do, and I feel like that's a reflection of her. And I think you're carrying on her legacy, tried and true. So let's look at when did you start working for the company?
Like, right out of college.
Like, what year was that? 2005,
2006. Yeah. I came back. I
felt like you wanted me to answer that question for you. You were just sitting there looking at me like you're a dumbass. Why do you keep asking me these questions?
Yeah. So, you should know these. Why don't you read the history on the...
Like, we just talked about this.
So I started in 2005, 2006. I remember, like, I came back... Aaron Holstein, who's the general manager for us, it was kind of a funny story. We started like the same day.
Yeah.
And he was coming back from Knoxville. He was down there working for a garage company because he worked for us in high school. He comes back and he says, our days went a little different. He was like, we were there for the same day. We shared the same office. He's like, this office now, we both have these huge offices and this 12 by 12. Where like he had to move for me to go to the bathroom. Right. And he was like, he's like, day 2, you left for Vegas for IDA. He's like, not me. I went out on jobs. He's like, so things went way different. So it's literally my second day in. My dad's like, we got to go to the International Door Association. We leave for Vegas. You got to go. And I was like, absolutely. Aaron? He's like, no. I was like, okay, you stay behind. So we joke about that. Our paths kind of different, but still, he's still on the management team, senior management team now. So it's kind of cool. Our story kind of rode together. And I remember jokingly, we sat in that office together and I was like, man, if we can make this work, you stick with me. I'll take you with me. Yeah. And he's stuck with me. Kind of like Greg is to dad, and Aaron is to me. He's stuck with me. And so he's been a vital piece of our business.
That's great. Growth, so. What does that ladder look like? So you walk in the first day, you don't just walk in and sit in an office. I mean, what was that you had a lot of hard work that you did there.
So, I mean, besides when I was in high school, like unloading trucks, right? Was kind of the thing. And then being an installer, I didn't do any installing after I came back because I'd already done it for 4 or 5 years prior on summer breaks and Christmas breaks and plowing snow when it snowed. And I still plow the snow when it snows. Right. And I think some things haven't changed. And, so I came in and I was like the assistant to the warehouse manager. I don't even know what that was. Like, all I knew is like, I just got yelled at all the time because the warehouse was a mess. And I'm like, what are we working here with? Like, so we just constantly worked on new procedures, the way to kind of store things, right? Before like automation was anything. And really you can't automate some hardware and some track. Like you can hang it on the wall or you can stair step it up the wall, but that's about it. There's not really anything else you can do with it. So, became that. And then I went in after that. I kind of went into sales, builder sales for a while because we lost some people. So it was like, hey, get into builder sales. So did that for a while, kind of filled that position, got to know, which was nice. I got to know more of the builders on that end, calling on guys, going out to job sites and doing that stuff. And then I came back in, then it was like, then you're going to be the assistant to the general manager. And so I did that for a couple of years and
vice president.
Yeah. And then, so I was the assistant to Greg and just really worked underneath Greg and worked on all kinds of stuff from like price books to procedures. I mean, just any little thing. And then I would work in anytime someone would be out in the schedule room, I'd like become scheduling manager. Yeah. Which was like awful because I felt like she was like sick all the time at one point. I'm like, man, I'm always in the schedule room. And when you're busy, times are good, easy to schedule, right? When it's slow and you've got all those guys staring at you like, hey, what am I going to do today? Right. And you're like, I don't, this is what you're going to do. They're like, yeah, what am I going to do after lunch? And you're like, oh man. I always tell the scheduling manager now, I'm like, you're complaining in here. You should be in here. I'm like, man, I sound like my dad.
I do the same thing.
I'm like, you should know what it was back in 2007, and he's like, whatever. But, so then, and then like it was one Christmas, probably 11 years ago, actually. I think I've been president now 11 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
One Christmas I came in and we had a company Christmas party Dad got up and he's making some spiel, and us managers were all kind of sitting up there. And I wasn't really paying attention. I thought some things were weird because I thought some commotion was going on in the kitchen area. And then he named me president that very moment.
Didn't even tell you.
Didn't even really tell me. He just kind of was supposed to like be a surprise, and then it was like, okay. And it was literally for you. And then literally like it was like 2008, 9. The economy is still completely crashing. And he's like, "Here's the keys."
Yeah.
And then he wanted to know, and then do the typical sit back and be like, "That's not what I would have done."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, right."
Right. So everybody always says that about my dad. It says that, you're so grateful that you should be so grateful you have all that years of experience and that advice. And I'm like, you know what that advice sounds like?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're a jackass. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So Dad was around for a lot of. Actually, Dad was around pretty much every day until Mom got sick 6 years ago, and then they were just getting ready to start that retirement plan. And then Dad, I won't say the number. Dad gave me a number. He's like, if sales ever get here, I'll completely retire. That has doubled. And I'm like, you're still here.
I'll be right back.
And I'm like, but I jokingly, I remind him all the time. I'm like, hey, we hit that number like a long time ago. And he's like, yeah, I'm not leaving. So
you're the president of the company now, and this is a dumb question, but what's that like? I mean, because you and I don't think many people understand it. I think that people look at family businesses, they look at a guy like you or a guy like me and think that we just screwed around our whole lives, and we still screw around, and all that happened was our parents just left us this big bundle of cash, and we just go and we basically just screw around all the time and continue to just make money. And you and I also always talk about, people who own their own businesses and are presidents of companies should have their own special doctor to fix all the stuff that's wrong with you, because you're always stressed out. We don't have any hair. I think my jaw clicks when I chew because I grind my teeth all the time. Yeah. I'm a mess. I got scars all over my face. But what's it like to be the president of this big company? Yeah,
I mean, someday, I won't take away from the fact that, it's great, to be the president of a company that's successful. And so I came in at a time where it was good, right? But we've also gone through when it was bad, and then we went through COVID, right? And I think COVID, aged me substantially, right? You just didn't know where it was going to end up. You didn't know if we were going to completely close down. We were able to stay open the entire time, but you didn't know. And then, I started taking loans out, right? And I remember when they stopped, I remember just sitting in being like, we can build that, no problem. Dad, sign the bottom line over here and get us some more bank money. And then when they started saying like, oh, you're an owner and you're going to need to sign your name. And I'm like,
yep.
You go home and tell your wife, you're like, hey, listen, I hope things go really well. And she's like, why? I'm like, because they're not even going to just take this house. They're taking everything that we own if this doesn't work out. I was like, because I signed a bank note saying like we were going to do good. And I just kind of hope. But yeah, so I mean, there's that, you enjoy it, right? You hope your kids enjoy it, that we do have the flexibility to do the things that we wanted to be able to do. But in another sense, I remind people all the time, like, my dad said to me one time, he said, it's lonely at the top. And I never really understood it at first, right? And I was like, what's he mean by lonely at the top? And I kind of tucked it away. Yeah. And then about a year or two ago, I remembered what he meant by he said that it's lonely at the top sometimes, because you can't always share. You can't always share the successes, and you can't share the losses, because I think it was Lou Holtz that said, or somebody said it is 90% of people don't care. 10% are glad you have the problems. So because so you don't want to tell them, because they're like, well, if I had that, I wouldn't complain. Right. You're like, right.
Nobody feels sorry for you.
Nobody feels sorry for you, but they don't understand. You still have concerns. You don't make payroll. You have those people you have to worry about. So I don't just worry about the 90 some employees we have. I worry about their wives, their kids, and all the people that work for them. Are they having a good Christmas? Do they have the money to pay their bills? You want them to have nice things. You want people to bring new people into this world and have nice houses and have nice cars. I get more excited about, it used to always be a joke when you come into the parking lot, and your dad probably did it. Must be paying them too much. I got a new car, right? That was always the joke. Oh, God, I'm like, man, I'm so excited when someone gets a new car at office. I'm not telling everybody like, do you see Joe's new car? And then because that's the parts that make it worth it, right? You're like, man, that's exciting to see them be excited about something. You used to always be like, well, you don't want to buy a new truck in front of them, because, right. And I'm like, well, that's how I get to work still. So I have to get a new one every once in a while. But yeah, I think that's the key, right? The success is really watching everybody else succeed. I love watching managers get to that next level, and you can give them something for it, and you get the bonuses, and your installers get that, that new car, the new house. We just had one guy bought a house, younger guy living by himself, got his first house, and just how excited they are to come home. And then how dedicated of an employee they become, right? Because now they're like, oh my God, I don't live with my mom and dad's anymore.
Yeah.
So you kind of feel them going through the same steps that you do, but on a business level, but on a personal level. And they're like, hey man, can I work Saturday? You're like, you're not scheduled. Can I work? Sure can.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because he's like, I had to furnish. I had internet, and so gotta have my video games and all that other stuff. Their parents are paying for before now. So it's kind of cool and watching them to grow through that progression. So it's been fun. I could tell people, I'm not so sure I want my girls to do it yet.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun experience.
That's good. I wonder, because I think a lot of the same times about our trades and about the employees is I want to give them the opportunity to make as much money as possible. I want to give them the opportunity to make this place their home and just own their own position and just take it and run with it, and really push for it. And I just wonder if the old guys, we think about the old guys all the time. They were tight as a drum. I mean, they were always bitching about money and always trying to save money here and save money here, which we still do. But I just wonder if they were like that at all. We just didn't feel like it because we were on the other end of it or what they were. But I think it's great to hear the passion in your voice, the way you think about your employees. And I think that's probably why you have a lot of loyal employees. You got a lot of guys that have been there for a long time. Yeah,
we have a lot of installers. I mean, we have one entry door installer that went out today and he's been there for 42 and a half years. Yeah. And he's still out hanging entry doors. And that's not an easy job to do by yourself, right? Those things get heavier and heavier.
How long has Greg been there?
Greg been there almost 43 years. Yeah. I mean, we have several service techs that have been there 35, 40 years. So
that's amazing.
A couple installers, I mean, a lot of installers have been there 20, 25 plus years. And we just brought on a bunch of new guys and it's fun to watch them interact and really letting them teach them. We started some new programs. And it's been cool to watch these guys say, okay, hey, here's the tiers. Here's how you get here. Here's how you can make the money. And it's kind of taking the ball out of our court to be like, okay, well, you've been here and now you just get a raise, right?
Yeah.
It's here's the tiers. Did you come in uniform every day? Did you show up on time? Did you do all these? Oh, and by the way, you can check the boxes as you start to master those things. You're checking the box to go to your next tier. It's not just then relying on me being like, or a manager being reliant on saying, okay, well, you've been here 6 months, a year. We're going to give you a merit raise. This is, he checked the boxes, came to work every day on time and wore his uniform. All right. He's warranted, this increase. And it's fun to watch them take back control and like you said, write their own destiny.
So you sell garage doors, you sell windows, you sell all kinds of different stuff. It's not just AEO. I always think about you guys as far as overhead garage doors. Mm-hmm. You work with Clopay, and that's a long relationship, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's the only, I mean, we had a Haas product before, which they no longer, it's changed. It was Taylor. Now it's Haas.
Oh, yeah.
So, Taylor, we don't buy that. So we are strictly a Clopay dealer here, and that's been since day one.
Yeah. Clopay's made here in Ohio, isn't it?
Yeah. Up in Troy, Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah. About a little over 1 million square foot facility up there.
A local company. That's the only doors I think we put in the last, I don't know how many years, in the last 27 years anyway. LiftMaster garage door openers. I mean, that's the same thing. This is the company that you guys deal with. You've always dealt with. What's the, and I think that, I've met some of those guys from Clopay and we're going to be with them next week, but at the same time, those have been a consistent rep too, I think, right?
So all of our major lines, so Provia, which does our entry doors and windows, since day one, like their company started basically the same time we did, and we kind of grown together. They've grown much larger, but as a manufacturer. But yeah, LiftMaster the same way, and then Clopay, we've been very loyal to our brands, and they've been very loyal to us, and that's what makes the partnership work.
And the people have remained close to the same people that are over there, right? And for the most part, and I think that builds that relationship too. So it's not just about the product; it has to be about the people and the relationship that you have with those people.
Yeah, for us, it's all about the relationship. I mean, like we tell people all the time, we could probably sell anybody's product, right? Because we hope that people are buying our name brand because of what we've done in the city and what we stand behind our product. But the reason why we have aligned ourselves with those products because we feel like we've tested all the other products and they're by far none the best that you can get. So,
what else do you guys do?
Awnings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awnings, screens, automated screens and stuff like that. Not a huge piece, but a lot of customers, what we found is, hey, we do this. They loved having us on their front door. They loved having us do their windows. That we did the garage door. And they're like, is there anything else you do? And we were like, man, what is something that we can do? And the automated screens was easy, right? Close in porches. It works like a garage door. So for our people, it was simple. And then awnings was something, somebody came to us one time like, man, I'd love an awning. I wish you guys could put it in. And we kind of talked about it and we bought it on and we installed it for them. We're like, that's really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And so, we went out and aligned ourselves with an awning company, and it's really worked out well for us.
So you do commercial doors, you do commercial overhead doors, you do the big metal rabbeted frame doors, but you also do replacement windows, right?
Yes. So replacement windows. So on the residential side, like you said, is garage doors, entry doors, windows, awnings, and then commercially, rolling steel, fire doors, dock levelers, like the doors you see at the Red Stadium, Paul Brown Stadium. We did all those, Kentucky Speedway, things like that. All those places we do those big commercial doors.
There's a lot of doors at Kentucky Speedway.
Yeah.
A lot of doors.
A lot of doors just sitting.
There's so many stories that we could tell that we just can't tell on the radio. You know, that's
Kentucky Speedway stories.
What do you think your market share is in Cincinnati? Because it was Southwest Ohio anyway. Because I think it's Southwest Ohio, I guess I should say, and Northern Kentucky. It's got to be a huge percentage because there's only maybe one or two other big companies out there, but the rest of them are all small individual guys.
Right. So, I mean, we break it down by individual. So, you know, on the garage door side, you know, we think we're at that 65, 68% of the market. Windows, obviously, we're much less because there are people that focus on it. There are the Pellos of the world and window worlds. They focus on that. Because we don't do a new construction window. It's just a replacement window. So that kind of pulls us back on that. And commercially, we have a certain percentage. But garage door wise is probably our biggest. And entry doors are getting to be a pretty good clip at what we're pulling back. But yeah, garage doors is our biggest for sure.
That's good. And I'll tell you that, like, when you say when it's not just about the product, it's about the service, it's about the people. And I found that to be true. You know, and you don't want to, in our business, you don't want to switch over a couple of pennies because you don't know what you're going to end up getting. And most of the time it doesn't work out very well. And I'll tell you the story that Alan Sr. told me one time was, it was maybe a Homerama house that he had built in the 70s or something. And somebody came along and said, hey, well, yeah, like they do with a Homerama house, we'll give you that door for free. And he took it. And you guys must have just, you know, you've been really, I mean, you don't want to lose any business. You know, you're really upset about it. And the guy come out, must have put the door in, screwed it up 3 ways towards the weekend. The night of the show's getting ready to open, I think it falls off the tracks. It's laying in the garage, and he has to call you guys to come out and fix it. And he said, you guys came out and fixed it. I mean, he said, I'm sure I paid for it, but you guys came out and fixed it. He said, ever since then, and that was in the 70s, since I've never would use anybody else, you know, and that's the loyalty you get because you do a good job, you know, and you do a great job for it. And I think that's something to be commended upon. So what's your forte? I mean, is it garage doors, or is it windows? Is it new construction? Is it retail business? Is it the service side of it? Where do you think you fall into it? Or is it all of it?
Yeah, I think all of it really. But I mean, I think what we're really well known for is garage door remodel. I mean, new construction, but we're only dealing with mostly high end builders on that. So, you know, that part people aren't, unless, you know, not every day everybody's going out and building a custom home. So, but yeah, remodel garage doors, and then service, right? I think we're well known for our service. We do a lot of service a day. So we average probably about 45, 50 service calls a day. And, you know, we'd like to look at, you know, our Google reviews and say, okay, you know, I have 1,500 4+ star Google reviews that we do a good job. And I think that's what people really know is that when they call in, it's funny how many times people call and they're like, hey, can you send Ron out? And you're like, yeah, but Ron's moved areas. You know, we try to keep these guys in the same areas for as long as we probably, but it's funny hearing guys call in. They're like, hey, Robbie can come out and do my service again. He was here 2 years ago. And you're like, yeah, Robbie still works for us. He's coming out. And they're like, he's worked there forever. He's been doing, you know, and so it's kind of nice to get people that they call and ask for those guys by name because they'd go so many times. Like we sell cans of lube, right? And we tell the guys like, hey, sell the can of lube to the customer and tell them to use this. Yeah. And, a lot of times the guys will go out there and they're like, man, we're like, you didn't sell any cans of lube anymore. And they're like, because they have 3 cans on the shelf. And it's because they'll go out and the lady will be like, oh my God, I forgot I had it. It was behind, the guys will find it. And they're like, you can use this on everything. And what people find is they just don't, you know, they're not doing it enough. And they're like, you need to use your can of lube. And like, you'll hear the guy say like, they had 3 cans on the shelf. I wasn't selling them anymore, cans of lube. So they're like, she found them and brought them all to me. So
that's funny. So, when you talk about your business, you know, when you go to talk to somebody about a door and window or what you do for a living, you know, what do you say? Because I'll tell you that with when I talk about Wheeling Builders, you know, when I start talking, I hope that they already know about Wheeling Builders. I hope they already know what we do and who we are, and you kind of, that's a little bit egotistical, you know, like when you think about that. But AE Door is so big, and I think if you say, you know, well, yeah. You can't just say, I own a garage door business. You say, I own AE Door and window. do people get excited? Do you get excited? Do you still have that pride? Because I feel like I still have that pride in it,
Yeah, I think I have the pride. I'll do it. So, joking, like when I'm out with employees, like I'll say, like if I'm out with those guys, I'll say, oh, we all work together, right? I'll never be like, oh, yeah, I own a door. So, and then the guys will say it, right? And people will be like, oh my God, they did my so-and-so, they did my neighbors. And then it'll get out. But yeah, there's that sense of pride when it's funny, you tell people a lot of times, I'll just say, around here, they're like, oh yeah, I work for a door and window company. And then they'll be like, oh really, which one? And then you'll say it and they're like, oh, I've used you guys all the time. And then, and so it's fun to like, you'll catch it both ways, or you'll tell people, oh, I own a door and window, and they're like, no way. No, you
You're
don't.
Right. I'm lying.
Yeah, I'm like, you're right. I made it up.
I could have told you a million different things right here and right now.
And that's not the one I was choosing. Like I was like, this is what I'll tell people, and I'm like, I own a door and window. I'll be at the dinner with my wife and kids, and they'll be like, no. I'm like, you're right. I don't own it. And then the other girls are like, yes, he does.
Know why I said it.
Yes, he does. And I'm like, honey, they're kidding. They know.
That's great. So what do I need to know as a builder? What's a customer need to know? What do people need to know about their garage door? What's the number one thing you could say, this is the most important thing about your garage door? Because, we used to think about, and still think about, the majority of the houses in the world, not the big custom houses, but the majority of the houses are the production style houses. And the garage door is more than 50% of the front of the house.
Right.
And so it's got to be a good look. It's got to be strong. It's got to be, people are spending more time in their garages. We're focused, if you listen to my podcast, which you probably didn't, but you got to listen to the top things that we talk about. Yeah. And he's building these custom houses. It's the garage was one of the things.
Right.
What's the main thing about these garage doors?
Right. I think that you said it, you hit the nail on the head right there, is that it obsesses or it takes up most of the house, right? 50% of the house. So if you're going to have a front facing garage door, make sure it's something that you're going to want to look at, because that's the new front door. Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, I'm not so sure my kids or their friends know we have a front door, because they've never been to it. So if I told them to go find it, I think they would go to the back door and knock on it. I'd be like, are you kidding me right now? How did you get through high school? And, but so I think it's important, right, to have that, and then know your needs in your garage. I tell people all the time, like, I know you probably grew up that way, tinkering out in the garage, right? So I'm always got something going on. Like I have a TV in my garage and I have some heat out in my garage, because that's the one place where I can go where I know no one's coming out to bother me.
Right.
Like they're like, oh, he's in the garage. I could be sitting in a lawn chair in the garage watching TV, and they immediately assume I'm working on something. I'll just have the hood up on the Ranger and like smack it with a stick every once in a while. And I'm like, still working. And, but yeah, it's the one place, like, for me, it's another retreat. So if you're going to have a space, make sure you've got an insulated garage door. If you're going to be out there and doing stuff in the winter, because there's nothing worse than you're out there in the dead of winter and you're freezing your butt off in your garage with the door down, and you're still like completely in your everything's warm, your gloves, and you're freezing trying to work on something. So it's nice to be able to have that extension of the house. And I think by having the screens too, by having the automated screens now that can go in between the garage, press a button, those lower down, and now you have this enclosed area. And even we're finding more too on like patio homes for older people, like, right? They may not have a screen and porch in the back. Right. So they all want to come out and say hi to their neighbor. So this is their way to sit out in the driveway in the garage and have the screened in porch. And especially when they don't have that basement, that man cave anymore. Yeah. Right. So now you have that extension of the house.
I think it's huge. Do you love what you do?
I do love it.
Good.
Today. Ask me tomorrow, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Or tonight. I mean, so do you think your girls will want to join this business at all?
I don't know.
Have you had that conversation? Anybody say, I want to sell garage doors when I get older?
Haley every once in a while was like, I want to do it. And I think like, they find the right things to be like, this seems awesome. We go on vacation, whatever. But, and they're like, it means like, do I get to go on vacation? Like when you go on vacation? Like, that's not the way this works. I mean, maybe they do. I'm not prepared to know whether or not that's the right thing for them. There's so many right now, the home service business is blowing up, and you just never know really where it's going to end up. Right now I'm having fun, and so I'm sticking with it. I think you could get caught up in people who want to buy home service businesses all day long right now, because they're everywhere. Every capital company out there wants to buy it, but we've got a good staff of people, really like who's working for us right now, really like where we're heading. So for me, it's like, I'm 41. And are
you sure?
Yeah, I didn't think about it. It's a birthday in September. So 41, and right now I'm just enjoying it. I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon, so stick with it.
Nice.
Get out of the house. I was homesick for a couple days, which if you can count, if you go to the employees and count, and then 19 years I've been there, they can't figure more than one day that I've been gone from being sick, and I was out for 2 days. And I realized that I couldn't retire right now because I don't think Felicia and I can get along enough for me, because I couldn't get my computer to work, or I couldn't get this to work. And she was like, "You need to go to the office." So now I think I need to stay.
I've noticed that you definitely they've got a system. You know,
and you're in the way.
Yeah,
of
I'm
that.
in the way, and
she's like vacuuming, and I'm like, "Why are we vacuuming right now?" I'm like, "I'm on the computer," and she's like, "This is what I do."
She starts walking around in circles, banging her head off the wall. I'm like, "Creak, creak, creak." I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, she's like, "This is what I do every day."
I just don't know what I'm going to do.
Like, brings the laundry out, drops it right. I'm like, "Seriously? Oh, this is what we're doing now?" And she's like, this is my routine.
You're in my way.
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay, I'll go to the office."
What do you want your legacy to be?
I think that, I was a good, fun person to work for, that I treated everyone fair, treated the economy fair, that I, gave a good service for a good price. Really, I think that's what, at the end of the day, there's so many door companies out there that are moving around the tri-state and around the country, and they're charging numbers that I couldn't fathom going to sleep. And they're like, "You're not charging enough. You're working too hard." And I'm like, man, I just can't see buying that part for that price and not, and charging that much. So I feel like if I could end and, have a good life, my employees enjoyed it, we made a little money along the way for grandkids and stuff like that, and I gave everyone a good quality at a good price, then I think that's really
awesome. That's awesome, man. We're gonna jump into what I call the lightning round now, and there's nothing lightning about it. I don't know why the hell we call it that, but it's the end of it. Now you've seen all the other questions I sent them to you in advance, and unless you know how to Google Docs work and you get on there and throughout the day and saw me adjusting it all day, but so I called a couple people and they gave me some topics and some questions to ask you, and of course the first one I called is your dad, Bill. And he said, the number one question is, how many people actually know that you went to college? That must not be a big deal.
People know I went to college?
Yeah, he's like, you must not tell anybody that you went to college.
No, I don't really talk about it much. I don't have my diploma hanging on the wall or anything like that.
Right.
So how many people know?
Yeah. Now there's at
1,700
least
people.
1,700 people. And me.
Yeah. So,
and that we talked about this, but that you went to school on a ski scholarship.
Okay, yeah, there's probably a lot of people that don't know that, right? So, I mean, your inner circle do that. You're right. Your friends do. You went there. But yeah, I don't know. Probably not a ton.
Like if you went to go play football at Ohio State, everybody knows,
know, right?
And you're at the mecca.
Maybe you should ask him why nobody knows I went to school at Ohio State because he didn't tell anybody, right? So maybe that's what we should ask him. And I always tell him all the time, I'm like, if I went to Florida Southern and played football, everybody would have known.
Right, everybody would have known.
Yeah, you wouldn't have missed all those national championships. So
that's what I think. If everybody talks about that, you played football, but skiing. I mean, you're at the mecca of skiing down there, and it just gets overlooked. And I don't know people even. But I'll tell you this: in Lake Cumberland, this last couple of years, you don't see anybody skiing anymore.
No, it's all wakeboarding and surfing.
It's wakeboarding and tubing and hanging, just beating the crap out of yourself. And man, I'm talking about bragging about. I've got VHS tapes of me skiing at night with glow sticks on the back of our skis and throwing a fishtail and just like thinking it's the coolest thing in the world. And everybody's like, "What is that called? Is that? How do you spell that?" So, and not many people know that you've had 7 surgeries, and I didn't know this I knew you had some surgeries, but 7 surgeries along the way with your education and in your scholarship.
Yeah. So I destroyed my shoulders. I broke a lot of things. The shoulders seemed to take a lot of beat. I dislocated a lot of things, but the shoulders did take a
because you weren't just slalom skiing. I mean, you were jumping. You're doing trick skiing.
Jump, yeah. And so my arms just when you're holding onto the rope, right? That's your lifeline. So your coaches always say, don't let go of the rope, because even if you're upside, go off the ramp, you don't want to be upside down. But like if you hold onto the rope, you might be able to pull it out. Never once did I get upside down and the holding onto that rope ever end in a way for me to be back on my skis. But they would always tell you, like, don't let go of the rope. So by God, I'd go to the
doesn't sound good
going out 70 miles an hour into the water, and I'm like, "Coach, I held on the rope the whole time." He's like, maybe a little long, should have let go of it sooner.
So I talked to Felicia today, your wife, and your bride, and she said that she wants you to talk about your early days because you cover this stuff up really good. I mean, you act like it was like, yeah, I did this, and this, but I think it was a hell of a lot more than that. I still think it's a hell of a lot more than that. But it wasn't necessarily your intention to come back to AE Door. You wanted to go and ski and go to school and do something else, and then you came back after that last injury and you came home. So what was your intentions? I mean, what did you want to do for a living?
Well, I mean, when I got down to Florida Southern, I thought, man, this could be fun. I could do this. And then, I got hurt again, pretty bad, messed up my neck pretty good. And so I just didn't have it in me to do it anymore. I wanted to, I really wanted it, but there was a fear there. And, I think, like you NASCAR, right? I think you would know, like Dale Jr., like that, that thought of taking a hit in the wall again. Right. And that thought of hitting, I was hesitant going into the bottom of the ramp, and those are things that kind of ruin it for you. And so when I got down there, I was thinking about anything other than garage doors. And then I thought, you know what, this is, but then, when you sit back and you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. And I still wasn't even sure that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of something big. And I didn't know if AE was going to be fill that void of something big, right? I felt like being on a water ski team and going to college for that was something big. And then we got back and I saw the potential for where we could go, right? And I just think it just needed, wasn't that the people that were working there weren't getting it. It was the fact that we just needed something to push us over the edge, right? And so I felt like that I could be that person.
That's pretty cool. I just, I know you, and I don't even know you as well as a lot of people know you. And I know that story about how you worked your way up and doing things like that. And it's just, and maybe it's nobody else's business. It's nobody else's story to hear, but I hate when people, like we talked about before, people look at you differently because they think you're spoon fed. They think that, they think that about me a lot of times. And I'm like, come over and put these shoes on for a minute, I mean, and go back 27 years, go back when everybody else is going to Kings Island and they're going to school dances and stuff. And I'm out at Homerama with my buddies, when we didn't have child labor laws apparently, and working your ass off for 18 hours a day. I mean, nobody understands that kind of stuff.
People love and they're like, oh, I love snow days when I was a kid. I was like, not me. I hated them.
Yeah.
Because you know what my dad did? He'd come out and flick me in the forehead. He'd be like, hey, that snow is not going to cover itself at work. And that's how I learned how to drive a Bobcat.
Right.
He was like, he got in, he showed me. He's like, oh, by the way, don't hit the building. Don't hit any cars. But I need you to go between the cars as they're parked. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so I learned how to, dump snow and do all that. That's how he teaches you to move dirt. And so now I still get up and it's funny. It's at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm checking all the parking lots and I'm getting up and I'm going on and getting equipment. I'm like, why?
Get you out of the house. Get you a little break.
And I'm like, everybody's calling me like, hey, we working today? I'm like, yes, absolutely. We're working. I've been up since 3. We're all coming to work today.
It's all clear. Yeah. So I've heard this story from 2 of these different people that I've talked to today. It's about the biggest prank in the history of the school of Baden that has something to do with, you were responsible for it, but it has something to do with.
There was a lot of us that were responsible.
Pig shit.
Pick that up.
And you got arrested and you had to get blood. And I'm just desperate to hear this story.
So we decided we were going to do a senior prank right at Baden. And we went to the old Buffalo Wild Wings that was over there in that Commons area in the back of Hamilton, right? Before where the Lowe's is and all that now. Yeah. We mastered up this 25-cent wing event that we were going to do that night, right? And it worked out perfect. My parents were out of town. They were with the Clopay conference. And so I was like, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. So I was like, yes, let's do this. So the 15 or 12 of us, however many it was, we masterminded this plan up, right? And we were going to deliver pig manure to the school and dump it on the front steps. And we were going to raise this flag up on the front that was vulgar, and then we had gotten the Ross jersey, right? And we were going to put it on the Virgin Mary. So hide our scent, right? They were going to think Ross kids did this because they put a jersey on the Virgin Mary. And then we got paintball and 400 rolls of toilet paper. And we had this whole plan, we had getaway cars. We parked our cars at this one house. We were going to all jump in these cars. Manure was going to be delivered. It's going to be great, right? We're all there. We're shooting the paintballs 01. We had painted 01 with paintballs in the back of the school. And so that should have been the red flag first there, that it wasn't going to be Ross, because why would they do their senior prank at our school? We got the Virgin Mary, like we even like all prayed around her because we were like, we're sorry that we did this. And so we're going around and we're on the front of the school. They've delivered the manure. We're raising the flag up that we've made out of bed sheets. And we're all super proud, right? And I guess because we shot the paintballs, they set off the silent alarm.
Oh, nice.
So we had a person listening to a police scanner. He was driving around in a car. And so because it was a silent alarm, they come, no lights, no sirens, no report. They just all report, right? So there we are, standing in the front of Baden.
What me?
We're just so proud. And like, you could almost feel the engine of the Ford, cop car pull up, and you're like, oh my God. And we all darted, right? We run in all these different directions. People, I do remember my buddy Mike Roeder. He's running, and like, how there was a ditch before the road, and he's running, and like his foot like goes in the ditch, and like he slid across the pavement like on his face, and like people just ran into the woods and hid. And we're texting, or I guess or not texting, we're calling our friends, like, who had phones, like, hey, come get us. Like, where are you? And they're like, hey, man, there's too many cops. We're out. You're the getaway car.
This is the risk you took.
That was part of the plan. Like, so I remember we ran through the woods, and, cops are everywhere now. Right now, lights and sirens are on. And I'm like, it felt like there was 5,000 cop cars. And, needless to say, one of the guy driving the truck with the manure gets pulled over, right? Because the stench coming from his car 4 miles away from where we dropped it. They catch him. You can smell him. And they've just followed the trail. He gets in trouble. We all get out. Like, people disappear into the woods for the night. Like, some guys walked miles home. Miles. Like, didn't get home till like 4:30 in the morning. And I end up getting in a car with a family member of a parent. We don't know this parent's actually. She's like, get in. So we're like, oh my God, she's our savior, right? We get in, and she's driving back towards Baden. I'm like, no, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And she was like, they have Christopher, and they said you guys have to turn yourselves in. And we're like, no. So like, one dude jumps. She had a convertible. He jumped out. Like, he just bailed, and I was like, what are we doing? So we go back, and they're like, principals there, fire departments there. I mean, cars are everywhere, and they're like, you got to shovel this manure back into the the truck. So we're, it's awful smell. It's on the front. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah. We're
shoveling it back in, and then like, I'm thinking, okay, like, we did our good deed. We're gonna let us leave, and they're like standing there, and all these cops are staring at me, and I'm like, I see them getting closer, and I don't even know what made me think. I was not a violent person, but I've got this shovel in my hand. And I set it down, and I'm ready to make my move. Okay, and I'm scoping out the area, and one of the cops was like, "We know who you are," and I was like, I just looked at him like, "Yeah, but do you?" And he's like, "I don't know where you're going."
Were you guys drinking?
We had drank, but I was convinced if I ran again, I was gonna get out of it. And he was like, "We Adam, I went to school with your sister. You're not running anywhere." And I was like, he's like, "We'll just wait at home for you." I'm going home. So they end up taking me to jail. Sure shit. And I go to jail. And
anybody else go with you? You're by yourself.
So the one guy that caught, and then the three other guys, or three of us or four of us that go in, right? And they bring in these interrogators, and I'm calling my sister, trying to call her and Brad, wake them up, finally get a hold of them, and she's like screaming at me on the phone. I'm like, "Hey, you're on speakerphone." Chill a little bit. And I'm like, "You got to bring some money down there. They're not going to let me out unless you can bring in like $400 or $500. She was like, "I don't have $500. I'm like, "Mom's got some at home. Just go to this drawer. You'll get it." Brad's at Kroger at 3 a.m. trying to get him to cash a check. And so they come, and this guy's like interrogating us, and he's like, "Hey, you got to tell me, who are you with?" And I'm like, "I'm not giving up anybody. Like, I'm going down with this. Like, I'm going down to the grave with this." And he's like, "Dude, we're gonna catch you." And I'm like, "Well, not from me, you're not." And he's like, "Well, you're gonna get you're gonna go to jail for 3 months." And I'm like, "Can he? Like, can this happen?" So I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it." And they interrogate the other three guys. I think they got some names out of people. So all is well. I get out, right? I go home. I go get my car, And see, I knew that they didn't know me because the car that they had wasn't registered. It was registered to dad and mom. So they went to the people's house where all the other cars were parked. And they're like, oh, no, that's not somebody. That's a company car. So I was like, I'm getting out of this. No, that wasn't the case. So I go home. It's like 5:30 in the morning. I get a shower. I fall asleep, right? I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be late for school now. Call my sister. So she takes a personal day. I'm like, Erin, you got to call Bade and tell them to be late. She's like, they know you're going to be late. Just go. I'm like, no, just do it for me. So I call, I show up, teachers are pissed. Like, they took it personal, right? And I'm like, my teacher I loved, right, grabs me by my shirt and he's like, I don't want to hear a damn word about this in my class. And I'm like, I wasn't the ringleader. I'm like 5'5" at the time. I'm like, I didn't pick these grown men and tell them to do this. Like, they did this on their own. So we go through it. I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, we get to like my second period and it's blood day at school. I'm like, this is perfect. It's a blood draw. I can do this. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to pretend to pass out. After I give the blood, I don't have to deal. I need to sleep. Like, I'm running on thin, right? I go down there and they're going through the questions. And they're just going back and forth. And I'm like, yeah, get to the point here. Let's get some blood given here. And she's like, I know this last question is silly. She's like, but we have to ask it. Have you been in jail in the last 24 hours? I look her dead in the eyes. I'm like, who put you up to that? And she was like, excuse me? She's like, I know, it's a silly question for a high school kid, isn't it? And I was like, what if the answer is yes? And she's like, oh, but then you can't give blood. And I was like, why? She's like, well, And I was like, no, I don't know. Because I was just there 6 hours ago and nothing happened to me. No one touched me. And she was like, are you being serious? And the teacher came over. She's like, yes, he's being serious. And I was like, she's like, well, you can't give blood. You gotta go back to class. This is after a classroom that I was just in when I went to the teacher. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't be here for this. I have to go give blood. 5 minutes later, who walks back in the door? Popped by on the seat. She's like, no blood? And I was like,
Kidding.
You already knew, huh?
That's a great story.
Yeah. So
I've never heard that story from you before.
So then they end up catching and it was like for the next couple of days through school, right? You'd hear, Mike Reuter, please come down to the office. And they're like getting arrested, and they just one by one just kept getting arrested, and they end up catching. And it turned out to be this huge thing. Like, parents wrote teachers to the editor saying, like, these kids are always been bad kids. And we're like, what? We've never been in trouble a day in our lives. We did a senior prank. And so it turned out to be something. And now it's so funny. I have 3 daughters at Baden, right? And like every year they get the speech and they're like, don't be that. And now the girls don't get just the don't do a senior prank. They're like, Haley, Miley, Emma, you know what we're talking about. And then so they'll come home and they'll be like, Dad, they talked about your senior prank again. I'm like, here's the newspaper article, girls, if you'd like to refresh on it.
So here's a scrapbook I had from that night.
So, yeah.
Oh, man, that's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. So Erin and Brad both, they brought that up again, like when I called it. So your sister Erin's the next one. And then and she's like, oh, I don't know. And then she calls Brad, and then Brad's like, ask him about the senior prank. We got to talk about that. But there was another hospital experience in Williamstown that apparently was that Brad was talking about that was pretty crazy. And I don't know if that was a ski accident or if this was something
it was
unrelated.
A ski accident. Yeah, so I was wakeboarding, just playing around. Might have been a Sunday night, right? We're, down there, right? That's like a BYOB, right? That's bring your own blanket to the hospital. And so I'm doing this trick and I'm sliding backwards and I catch an edge and just lights out, right? I'm out cold. And
oh my God.
Some people jump in from the leg, Brad them are jumping in. They drag me up onto the back of the boat, and they get me back to the house. They put the boat on the lift, and they decided like, hey, we're gonna call. I'm awake now. They're gonna call 911. And so they come, right, and it's just like the first couple guys that show up like drove in their own cars, like some good old boys, like some jeans, and they're walking around. They're like, man, this house is nice, They're walking around, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm laying down there, and they trying to back that ambulance down that hill, and it just was this fiasco. And so I go right to the hospital, right, and they ambulance takes me, and I go in, and I don't know if they were busy or what, and they said I needed to stay in like a dark room, right, because you have this. Now, mind you, I'm still in a wet bathing suit. I've ridden in an air-conditioned ambulance, and I'm in an air-conditioned hospital now, freezing, no blankets, just chattering, no shirt, just bathing suit on. And I'm in this hallway. Like, it's like a storage hallway. They just had me strapped to this board still. No one's come to me. And the best story is hearing Brad. He's like, we're sitting in this makeshift area weight room. He's like, and then all of a sudden, he's like, out of the corner of our eye through this hallway, you just walk past. He's like, no shirt, no shoes, no nothing. He's like, you just walk past. He's like, and then all of a sudden you stop and you come back and you walk out and you're like, let's go. And he's like, what do you mean, let's go? And he's like, I don't know. I've been in this dark. I just unbolted myself from this stretcher and just got up and walked out. And he was like, it was the funniest thing. He's like, we just see the shadow of this person walking through the hallway. He's like, it's you just trying to find an exit to get out of the building. He's like, you found us in the lobby. And he's like, take me home. He's like, and so there we are. We just get in the car and off we left. And he's
that's
like,
great.
So that's how it ended.
And you're fine. You're fine. He also wants to know who your favorite brother-in-law is.
Well, it's Brad.
Right. Yeah. I figured that because I mean, the Alabama's pretty far away, and I don't even know if the WB download gets listened to down there in Alabama. So we're probably good to say it's Brad. So, I think that, and we've talked about this already, but they all said, they wanted to talk about your mom and your relationship with your mom and how that impacted you. And I think we've hit on that. And I wasn't even sure if you were going to want to talk about it today, but I appreciate you opening up about that a little bit. So I'll tell you what makes me proud of you, man, is you're a great dad. You're a great husband. You're even more to do it while you're running this company, because it's, like I said, it's tough. Nobody, like you said, it's lonely at the top, but nobody knows what you go through. Nobody knows. Even the people who have been there still don't know the struggles and the things you deal with today. And I think you do a great job. I think it's disappointing to me that more people can't see it. Not because you want anybody to know or anything like that. I think that I want people to know the Adam that I know. Yeah. And I think that it's cool for you and I to be friends and understand each other and to be able to have this conversation like this today. But I hope you know that I'm proud of you, and I hope you know that I've always considered you a friend. Not always. I mean, until we met. And when we met, then I considered you a friend. Yeah. And it's been awesome. Yeah. It's been awesome having you here today, man. I know you're busy. We're both sitting here doing this and we're looking down at our phones. It's going crazy because there's so many things going on. And I can't tell you how much I mean to me for you to take time out of your day and be here. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So it's Adam Weber here on the WB Download. All right, everybody. Man, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I think the world of Adam. I think he does such a great job, and I'm just so appreciative of all the things that he does and can do. I'm so appreciative of AE Door and Window Company being a trade partner and a family member here at Wheeling Builders. They're part of our family of work, of people who work with us, and man, they do a great job. And it's because of the people that work there. It's because of the leadership that they have, and it's because of the products that they can provide for us. And they've been here for more than 27 years. And even before that, they were doing some work for my dad. So Adam's such a busy guy, not just with work, but with all the things he's got going on with his family. And I just can't thank him enough for taking time out of his day and coming over here and doing this interview with us, man. And I'm super proud of him, and I just can't say enough good things about him. So thank you, Adam, for being here. Thanks for taking time, and thanks for being a friend of mine. I want to thank the audience for listening today. I think it was a great interview and just really enjoyed it. I don't want to laugh the entire time, but some of the stories he was telling did a great job, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. So thank you. The next episode we have is coming out on the first, maybe it's the second week in November, and there'll be a second Tuesday in November. And we have an awesome guest lined up for you. It's Gary Sullivan. Gary Sullivan is just a radio personality, a TV personality here in Southwest Ohio, but this is where he lives at. The radio show and the TV show go all over the place. And I'm super excited about it because I've known Gary a long time. And I did an interview with him in 1999 was my first interview with him when I was chairing Home Rama. And so I'm really excited to have him here. So, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download on wherever you get your podcast service, and make sure you listen in. Make sure you download it. Make sure you subscribe to us because we want to get the word out and make sure that people are listening to what we have to say. If you want to be a part of the conversation, send your questions, topics, or if you want to be a guest here on a WB Download, email me at wbdownload@wielandbuilders.com. That's WIELAND builders.com. And if you want to see more behind the scenes of what we're doing here at Wieland Builders, we've got a couple new projects that are going to be up on the website here soon. We've got the Matterport, we've got pictures, we've got video, we've got all sorts of things, drone shots of these houses I keep talking about that we're going to close. And we got a lot of that stuff here. So I want you to go to the website and check it out. It's wielandbuilders.com, WIELAND builders.com. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks again for listening. Can't thank everybody enough, and tune in next time here on the WB Download.